today on Green Country People and Places. The Tulsa Driller is the largest freestanding statue in the world at 76 feet tall.
Big Bad John.
There's no other creature on earth that I relate to more than the horse.
Oklahoma's green country. Can you let go of my thumb and I can get you some more? It's full of unique places. This does remind me of the Flintstones house. This thing's huge.
It's pretty impressive.
And interesting people.
This is a trading post here.
I have a lot of paranormal activity over here.
What is that, a horse? So come along with us and enjoy the ride. Robert, what have we got going on here today?
We've got the annual Steam and Gas Engine Show in Oklahoma. We are a nonprofit organization that is the preservation and education of antique farming practices in Oklahoma and the Prairie State.
And other than this event, year-round, people by appointment can come out here and look at the steam engines,
Most
right?
definitely. We've got all these buildings, and most of this equipment stays on site all year round.
Obviously, they're loud, but I also noticed we had some water coming out of one of the smokestacks that just about hit Brian.
Yeah, that is it. Actually pulling the fire through the firebox, and it actually pulls some water up through with it.
Wow. And this is huge. I mean,
this is steam. This is the predecessor to gas engines. This is what they farmed with, and this is their power supply and source that they had before.
Yeah.
Electric motors and internal combustion engines.
And so they use coal?
They do. They start with the coal, and a lot of times they would burn wood slabs off of a sawmill, and then the coal, and then they use that to fire the firebox, which boils the water, which produces the steam, which produces the power.
Oh my goodness, that is hot in there, isn't it?
Yes, about 600 degrees in there.
That is something else. And so, like you said, it's a predecessor to gasoline.
It is. It's the power source that they used in rural America before electric motors and gas engines.
So, how old are some of these things?
Most of them are, the steam ran from about 1865 up to about 1920.
The size on these is impressive. I mean, for something that long ago that they actually could construct something this large.
And these are just an average size steam. This one, I know for a fact, this one weighs about 13 tons.
Holy cow.
And they had the small portable models, and then they'd go all the way up to the huge 110 case that's 2 stories tall.
Now, it's not exactly the cleanest fuel, right?
No, it's not, but it is a very efficient fuel.
That is so neat because, yeah, back then we didn't have to worry about any regulations,
no,
stuff like that. So, well, on the end here, is this where they clean out?
This is the smoke box on the front of the engine, and that's where the heat comes through the tubes,
right,
and then it'll go up here, and then that's where and the tubes are surrounded by water,
right,
and then the tubes heat the water, which turns it to steam. But this is just the way that it circulates through.
So it's basically the same way a gas engine works, but it's steam that's making the pistons move, kind of? Okay.
Yeah. No, it is exactly.
Oh, okay.
Instead of an explosion inside the cylinder with gasoline or petroleum products, it is steam that's pushing on both sides of the cylinder to make the cylinder move.
Gotcha. So Robert, what are they doing right now?
They are getting ready to back up and refuel this steam engine up. They've got their water in the tanks on the side, and then we've got our coal supply over here, and he's getting ready to back up and fill these bunkers on the back of it, so they'll have fuel to run the engine.
So this is the authentic 1800s gas pump.
Exactly. It's the gas pump of the early days.
Working in a coal mine, going down, down, down. Working in a coal mine, about to step down. Working in a coal mine.
I gotta admit, you know, when I was a kid, I had to mow the yard. Shoveling coal's a little bit...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they thought it was as fun as mowing the yard is these days.
Yeah.
And you got to keep a good bed of coal in the bottom of the firebox to generate your heat and everything. But it burns up. The harder you're working the machine, the faster the coal's going to go away.
I was gonna say, there's not a miles per gallon, so how do you...
There's lumps per, I don't know. But you know, they can fill the bunkers up and pull this over at the sawmill and work for most of the day.
Now I see water leaking. That's not a big deal?
No, that's not it's just, you have to remember that these machines are almost 100 years old.
Right.
And they have been working and for their life, and then they've been restored, and the few leaks and drips and stuff is not an issue at all.
Now, when these things build up pressure, are there safety measures to it?
There are. There's a pop valve at the top up here, and I think the pop valve on this one's set for like 150 PSI.
Okay.
These are inspected by the state. State boiler inspectors were out yesterday and the day before. They've got their certification, and there's the operators know what they're doing. We've got the top-notch operators, and their safety is their main concern on this.
Robert, this looks dangerous. That's the biggest saw blade I've ever seen in my life.
It's a 56-inch diameter saw blade.
Wow. And so the blade's turning because this belt over here is doing a wheel, and then the belt goes all the way back to the steam engine.
Correct. All the power for the whole mill is supplied to the steam engine. And it's all running the main shaft, which runs the edger and runs everything.
And that wheel on the steam engine's cranking.
Yes, it is. It's doing pretty good.
And so this is how they cut wood back then.
Yeah, they would use these. They would thresh and plow in the planting season, and then for harvest in the wintertime, they'd get their engine out and they'd cut lumber all winter.
What's this auger down in the ground with this pool of water?
This auger pulls our sawdust out from underneath the saw pit and removes it from the sawmill just so it doesn't build up. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is neat.
This is I love this. Sawmills are what I love.
It's amazing the ingenuity of the people back then with what they had available.
Oh yeah, I mean it was all mechanical. I mean we've got the electronics and the stuff that's amazing today, but the mechanical aptitude of the fellas in the day
That is really impressive.
It is.
I wish I had one of these at home.
They are fun. They're a lot of fun. The cut wasn't enough to go ahead and run all the way down the log, so he backed it up and he advanced. Every time he pulls that lever, it gives you the thickness of a new board.
Okay, so now they're going for a board.
Actually, he's going to clean up that side of it, and then he'll lay the log down and start cutting lumber.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then he'll slice, go ahead, he'll slice off a board, and then we'll put it over here in the edger. Yeah, what they're doing now is they're rotating the log to get the best cut, because you have to rotate it and cut around the outside of a log, because the very center is the worst part of the log, believe it or not.
So Robert, what does this do?
This is an edger. It takes the rough bark edge and cuts it down to a nice clean finished edge so you get good lumber.
Oh man, so this is an entire sawmill here.
Yes.
This is huge.
It is. This is impressive. This is ran the zinc smelter in Blackwell, Oklahoma.
Wow.
It supplied the three-phase power that they use to melt the zinc at the smelter up there.
I mean, the power behind this is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes back to the steam and all the power steam has.
I mean, the wheel alone is thousands of pounds.
And I don't know the exact ton, but it is in the tons. It is in the thousands of pounds.
So that spins and it generates electricity here?
This is a flywheel to keep the momentum spinning, and then it spins the exciter, which creates three-phase electricity.
Do you use the power for anything?
We use the power to light the light bulbs for demonstration purposes in here. It's big enough that we could supply all our needs, but it's in the wrong format.
Wrong phase?
Yeah, wrong phase. He's feeding the boiler outside, which the steam comes in on the steam lines and turns the engine.
Takes a lot of wood. We'll burn about 30 ricks of wood in 3 days.
I like all the paint jobs too. People restored these, haven't
Yes, they have. These things have been brought back to when they came off the showroom floor, so to speak.
Is there a lot of pride in using original materials and stuff?
Yeah, and see, the thing about when you're restoring one of these is you can't run down to the parts house and buy parts for them. So when they see something that needs to be fixed or is broke, they have to actually send off and have it cast.
Wow.
I mean, and these parts are fabricated.
And they're expensive.
And they're expensive.
The bigger the toy, the bigger the bill.
Well, and it just shows to show that how much these guys, we enjoy restoring these and the effort that's put into them. And the corners, they don't cut corners. Yeah. And they take pride in their work.
Robert, this has been one of the most fun trips we've had. Thank you for showing us around.
It's my pleasure. You guys come back anytime.
Okay, no problem. Well, it's off to our next location. Hit 'em up, move 'em out. You have a pike pass on this?
Not hard. Not hard.
In Tulsa, we do things big, really big. And if you've lived here for even a week, you already know about the Tulsa Driller. But I bet you might not know how it wound up being here.
Big John, Big Bad John.
In 1953, the Mid-Continent Supply Company of Fort Worth first introduced the Golden Driller at the International Petroleum Exposition. It was a one-and-done deal and taken down and stored after the expo.
Big John.
6 years later, in 1959, it was again erected for the Petroleum Expo. It drew so much attention that the company donated the statue to the Tulsa County Fairgrounds Trust Authority, which had it permanently installed in front of the Tulsa Expo a little bit later in 1966.
Big Bad John.
Now for some fun facts. The Tulsa Driller is the largest freestanding statue in the world at 76 feet tall and weighs in at 43,500 pounds. He wears a slimming 48-foot-long belt, size 393 Triple D shoes, and a size 112 hard hat. The statue is constructed of angle iron plaster and concrete that can withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds.
Big Bad John.
The oil derrick under the statue's right hand is a real derrick from an oil field in Seminole, Oklahoma. Oh yeah, he was painted gold in 1979.
Big John.
He's been ravaged by weather, survived tornadoes, attacks by vandals, souvenir seekers, shotgun blasts, and has even had an arrow in his back. But you know, he's still looking good.
Big John. Big John. Big Bad John. Big John. Big John. Big Bad John. Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky, so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you.
We are in beautiful downtown Hominy, and we're at the Tullis Gallery with Che. Thank you so much.
Nice to have you.
Appreciate you showing us around. You know, you've actually made a big impact on this town for quite a while, and the first thing I know about is you actually started doing murals, right?
I did start doing murals. In 1990, I started a project. It basically was just going to be 2 murals, and we ended up with over 40, I think 46 at the time. So
it really makes Hominy unique because there aren't many places that have that. And the thing I like about your murals, it reminds me of the old Coca-Cola signs, those sorts of things. And you're actually letting those distress naturally, aren't you?
yeah, it never was my intent for them to last forever. So the murals eventually will decay and fall off the walls, and someone else or something else, or maybe me, whatever, will start another project.
Most artists I know kind of want to leave a legacy. So it's interesting to hear the aspect of you don't mind also if something that you have disappears and goes away naturally.
Well, my legacy is actually my granddaughter's, but yeah, it'd be cool to have something that lasts forever. You know, I've done some rather large sculptures also, so those will be around for a long time too.
Well, you're speaking of the hills right outside of town.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because that's really striking. When you drive in, it's like, Whoa.
that heel stood out like a sore thumb, and I thought, God, there's got to be something to use that heel for. So I actually went home and had a dream to do that piece. However, it did take about 3-4 years for me to convince the community to let me put something bigger than life up on the hill. Yeah.
You look at them from the ground, they're okay, but how big are they in reality?
They're actually 20 feet tall.
Holy cow,
Yeah.
how'd you go
And they
about
stretch
cutting
out
metal that big?
about 200 feet, yeah.
So that's thousands of pounds of metal up there.
Oh yeah. That was actually in 66 print publications worldwide in a 2-week period. I had people come from other countries, and they showed me the article in their magazine, and you know, it's not in English, so I didn't know what they were even writing about me, but I saw the pictures, yeah.
Well, you do have one legacy up there too, it looks like.
I do. It'll be there for a while.
Now, it really doesn't show, but your gallery is huge.
It is. It started off as this building. I went to work in this building. By the way, the building was built in 1906, which was the year before statehood.
Oh, wow.
And I went to work in this building when I was a kid as a silversmith for a jeweler that had the building at the time. And he said, I'm sick and tired of hearing about you. Why don't you go to work for me? So I did. 50 cents an hour started off, and eventually I was up to $1 an hour. But
so your first dabbling into art really was working with jewelry.
well, you know, I sold my first painting when I was 2.
Way to go.
It was actually to my aunt, so I don't know if I truly have bragging rights, but I started with the jewelry when I was about 11 years old, and eventually at 13 was making silver and turquoise jewelry in my father's garage. I do lots of horses. I'm actually a horse guy. I love to ride, and
It's hard to pick it out amongst the rings, by the way.
I know. Yeah, how's that? Is that better?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I like to do horses, and I do quite different styles. I do a lot of big headshots, and also I do some full body jewelry too with the whole horse. So it ends up to be. But you know, I do lots of. I'm not going to say I do just animals, but I do lots of animals also. But I like playing with the color. The color is huge, and each piece of turquoise. Actually pretty much tells me what it wants to be.
Well, I was going to say, you leave the stones somewhat natural, but the silver, you're shaping it, you're sculpting it. What's the term? I mean, yeah.
All of the above. You know, you cut out a shape and then you start stamping or bending or twisting or adding pieces to it. I add a lot of leaves and feathers to pieces too.
Hey there, Mr. Blue, it's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue, it's a place to be with you. Look around, see
You were doing jewelry. You also kept painting during that time, and I gotta say, people aren't seeing everything, but you're extremely prolific. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's stuff that you've done.
Yeah, I paint probably 20 to 30 originals every year. The sculptures, yesterday, I spent in the studio at home. I did probably 80 Christmas ornaments, and then I did 8 incense burners. So, you know, there's always something. And I've got 3 paintings on the easels right now in the studio at home. Plus, I've got a 10-foot grizzly bear that's standing in the middle of the studio that I'm working on, and have been working on for a couple of years. So, I stay busy.
When you start painting on things like this, the stories you're telling are great. I mean, everything's a little bit different.
Each piece is different because I wake up with a new image in my mind that I've dreamt about over the night or a couple of nights, and I can't wait to get it on the canvas.
I really love your use of color. I mean, everything's bright, vibrant.
It is.
It's almost
like my life.
It's almost photorealistic in a way, but you still have a bit of the artist in it at the same time.
It does. It has. You know, there was a time when I jumped around a lot. I did a lot of landscapes and figures also, and I've kind of concentrated on just what I enjoy painting, and it ends up when you see it all together, it all works together. If you saw it hanging separately with some of my pieces that I had done earlier, it wouldn't relate to them at all. So
I know my wife would love the horses.
Yeah.
They're incredible, really nice.
My grandfather gave me the gift of the horse when I was 10 years old. That was my 10-year birthday present. I've been riding since I was 2. My grandfather had about 50 head of horses when I was a boy growing up, and I got off the school bus on my birthday when I was on my 10th birthday, and there was a horse tethered to the clothesline. Oh. And I was in heaven and have been in heaven ever since. You know, a horse doesn't judge us, and he's your loyal friend and your best pal, and there's no other creature, and I've got dogs and cats and a parrot and fish. There's no other creature on earth that I relate to more than the horse.
From the front, you think I'm just in this little bitty building, but then it keeps going back and going back. And I don't know if you like the association, but I feel like I'm in Casa Bonita. I mean, you've got a village back here. You have a fountain. You have windows and a walk area.
This was an empty room, a huge empty room, and it actually had a hole in the ceiling, the roof, where water actually came through. And so we started having bus tours, and I needed public restrooms. I had one little bitty bathroom, and you have 60 people in line to go to one bathroom. It's not a pretty sight. So I came back to actually build 4 restrooms, and I ended up about 3 months later with this addition, and it's been quite a deal. I took the ceiling out of that building. After I built that building, I took the tin out of that building, because this building was built a year after statehood in 1908. So all the original tin ceilings are still here, and I took that out and replaced that. Yeah,
that's cool.
That was quite an endeavor. I sandblasted, and it's got 7 layers of paint on it to protect it.
So let's see.
Took
you're
quite a while.
Jewelry maker, painter, metal sculptor, now you're interior designer and architect.
I do windows and vacuum too.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting into the metal sculpture?
The metal sculptures actually came around probably 97, 98. I did the piece on the hill in 97.
So that was your first?
New territory. That was the first piece.
Start big or go home, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know what? It blended very well with the murals, because the murals were so large. It wasn't that difficult to do a large piece on the hill out of steel. It's basically the same, you know, it's an image just like a painting is. So, and actually my smaller pieces probably take me more time and more concentration than the larger pieces.
The detail in some of these is great. I mean, you actually got the
Hair,
and
the fur, the eyes, the nose, yeah.
Now, I imagine your whole life changed when the plasma cutter came out.
Plasma cutter was a real gift from above. It's much like painting or sketching, because it's so fast and so smooth.
People at home who haven't seen one, it's like a cutting torch, but you just draw. And
you plug it in to 220, and you put 70 pounds of air pressure to it, and it makes its own juice, you know, its own gas. You pull a trigger, and it's not a flame, it's more of a laser type thing that shoots out, and it cuts.
One hot brush.
But the neat thing about it is you can wiggle and get texture, you know, with it, or you can be as smooth and gentle and get nice lines with it. So unlike the settling torch, which just burns its way through like a real brute force, the plasma cutter is very, very gentle. For me, has a soft touch.
This is an impressive piece. Three-dimensional.
Thank you. Yes, it is. This piece actually started off as a painting that I did. I did a series of paintings called Animal Medicine. This was the horse out of one of the paintings, and you know, my fondness of horses, I had to do a horse. So
Why'd you go three-dimensional? I mean, it's thick and it's hollow too, right?
It is. It's hollow, and it's made out of the same flat steel that I make most of my other sculptures out of. But I did a big piece. I did an eagle that actually I donated to the Children's Indian Healthcare in Tulsa, and they auctioned it off. And it was a three-dimensional piece, a large piece, and it was the first three-dimensional piece that I had done out of the flat steel, so I gave it to the Indian Healthcare Center of Tulsa, and they auctioned it off, and it brought like $10,000. Money does inspire. So I came back and I started doing some other pieces. So I've done a buffalo, I did this horse, I did a rooster, a wolf, and the eagle, and the big peyote prayer, and right now I'm working on a 10-foot grizzly bear. So.
And you're wanting to create a sculpture park.
I think the public would appreciate them more and get to see them more if they were a collection in a park, a concentrated place. I think there's probably a time when what you give back is more important than what you get.
9 days, I let the horse run free, 'cause the desert had turned to sea. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rings. The ocean is a desert with its life underground and a perfect disguise above. Under the cities lies a heart made of ground, but the humans will give no love. You see, I've been